Welcome to Today's Homeowner with Danny Lipford. Expert advice on improving your home. From remodeling contractor Danny Lipford and the home improvement pros from Today's Homeowner magazine.
Hello and welcome to the show this week. You know, the front entryway of your home really defines how inviting the home is and really defines the curb appeal of your home. Well, this home has a little bit of a confusing situation in that it has a door there, really not sure where the guest should arrive. But through this renovation, we'll solve that problem because that door will be replaced with a window, and then the renovation will allow the door to come out a little bit more and enlarge the existing living room on the front of the house. Now, we'll look at this one a little more in detail, as well as show you several other projects that'll give you some great ideas of how to improve the curb appeal of your home without spending too much money. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now, the work that's taking place on the front of this home is really going to improve the looks of the house from the outside, but also from the inside. Now, this room we're in is only 10 feet wide. The homeowners always wanted to enlarge the room. Well, by taking in the 6 feet that's available on the existing porch, we'll move this whole wall out that full 6 feet. Now, taking in the front porch is going to accomplish just what the homeowners wanted by enlarging the front room of the home. But they really liked their porch. Actually, they wanted a larger one because the porch and all of the nice rough cedar siding really gave the rustic look to the exterior of the house that they really wanted. Well, we're not going to let them down there. We're going to provide even a larger porch going from 6 feet out to 10 feet. Now, this is a treated wood, of course. It's a 2x6, which is actually 1.5 inches thick, instead of like a lot of deck boards now going to 1 inch thick. It's real good and sturdy. Also, let me show you this little detail where you have 3/4 inch plywood subflooring, which is matched up to the level of the room inside, which is necessary. And then you have a little step down here of about 3/4 inch. Even though this area will be covered by a roof, you may have wind that blows rain inside and possibly going under the door unit. So this will prevent this from being a problem. So it's a good idea to have at least a little offset anytime you have an opening like this. Now, talking about the doors here, the doors will be positioned, the double door that opens to the inside. But normally I would suggest the doors be located in the center of the porch so that you have the center steps, you have the center doors, nice and symmetrical. But the homeowners really wanted to control the flow of traffic going into that room and allow it to go to this side of the room instead of right in the middle. So we moved that over, but to get them plenty of natural light, we're putting in a large windows here so that the light can just flood into that room, because really it's a bit dark the way it is now. Now, talking about the roof that'll cover this porch, they're going with a shed type roof that'll rest on top of this existing roof and slope with a 3/12 pitch out to the beam that's already in place. Another option here could have been a gable roof, which would be a shape like this that ties into the existing roof with a valley on each side. But again, they preferred the shed style roof. Now, let's take a look at the steps. Almost every porch has a set of steps, and if you're going to have a set of steps, you might as well make them nice and wide. Now, these steps are over 6 feet wide and really give you more of a welcoming feeling when you drive up to the house. Now, there's a number of code issues that you have to consider when you're building a set of steps. Let me just point out a couple of them. First of all, most codes will accept the 7-11 rule, which means you need to be 7 inches from this point to this point and at least 11 inches on your tread from here to here. Now, a little bit later, we'll be installing a kickboard here, still staying with all the treated wood. But another great idea here, instead of using, say, a 2x12 in a situation like this tread, we've used two 2x6s for several reasons. One, a 2x12 out in the weather will tend to crack after a while, could be a trip hazard, because it won't allow the water to drain through like two individual boards like this. So it's a better idea to use two 2x6s instead of just one 2x12. Also, when you're building the steps, you have to consider good sturdy handrails. So handrails will be constructed. These 2x6s were set down in concrete to make them good and sturdy. We tie our handrails here, coming right on up and tying onto these. Now there's several reasons and several things you need to consider in building handrails. First of all, when do you need handrails? Well, anytime you have a porch this high or anything above 24 inches, you really need handrails because of the danger of someone falling off. And of course, handrails are somewhat of an individual preference in how you like them to look, but we're going to match very closely to the original look of the handrails on the original design of the house. But a couple things to consider there. Make sure they're at least 36 inches tall from the deck to the top of the handrail, and the spindles that you have need to be at least 6 inches apart, or at least no further apart than 6 inches, so that you won't have any problem with any children falling through. Now, to finish off this porch, one of the things we'll do, you'll notice the graining on this particular board and how it's turned in this manner. That way, if there's any cupping or bowing on this board, it'll go up like this instead of down, which could really be a defective part of the wood and a trip hazard. So anytime you're putting wood on, you need to cup the grain like that. Later on, cosmetically, we'll be putting a little 1x3 strip over the end grain, putting a few pieces of the cedar lap siding that's on the house, and then finishing it off with some nice thick lattice, which will give it that finished look. And I can just imagine that flower bed, filling it out right here and really making it look nice. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Get ready to review your fix-it list as Danny and today's Homeowner Magazine repair and maintenance editor Joe Truini show you this week's simple solution. Brought to you by Dodge.
If you're working on a project around your house where you're using small nails, small piece of trim, big fingers, big hammer, you get the picture. It could be very painful. Joe has a few tips for us to handle that.
Well, in this case, Danny, where we're nailing a narrow stop around the inside of this window, it's difficult to hold the tiny nail up there and hammer it without striking your fingers. So one technique is to use a pair of needle nose pliers to hold the nail. And this is simple enough and it works really well, but if you don't happen to have your needle nose pliers with you, you still have to go back to holding it by your hand.
Now, I've tried that trick and it does work fairly well, but what about the old-fashioned cardboard trick?
Well, this is another idea that you can use. You just take a thin strip of cardboard or thick paper, cut a slit in it. You can use that to hold the nail. And it works basically the same way as the pliers. It allows you to keep your fingers a safe distance away.
And what about those situations where you have a real narrow area you may be working on and your hammer and trying to hold that up? How do you handle that?
Well, in this case, you see I'm trying to nail up near the corner, and there is very little space. But all you need for that is a pencil with a nice thick eraser on it. Take your utility knife and cut a slit in the eraser all the way down to the metal ferrule. And then you can use the eraser as a little clamp. So it just grips the nail, and you can use that to hold the nail up in place. And once you get the nail started, you can then pull the pencil away and finish nailing it off.
Now, if you'll use these little tips, it'll ensure that you're hitting the right nail instead of your fingernail. Now, this is another great example where the front of this home has drastically been improved by making a few simple changes around the front door. Now, originally the home had just some simple brick steps, no covering at all over the front door, and a large window directly over the front door, which was a little overbearing when you looked at the front of the home. But by adding just the front entryway cover here, changing the windows a bit, and putting in a nice granite landing and steps really have changed the look of the front of this home. Now, this home is located right outside Boston and is a little more formal than the rustic home we looked at down in Florida, but I think you'll agree it really has improved the look of the home. Now, earlier today we spoke with Paul Sullivan, who's the remodeling contractor that helped the homeowners with this project. Well, Paul, now this doesn't look anything like the photos of the existing house you showed me.
No, it sure doesn't, Danny. We started out here with a very sort of flat and unbalanced front of this home. Obviously, the biggest thing we did here was this entry, but there were a number of other things that happened. There were two big windows over here with arch tops that were just completely asymmetrical to everything else on the home. There was an enormous window up above this roof, which of course had to go to make way for this beautiful new gable, but it also just went with that unbalanced look.
It didn't really fit in at all. I'm sure inside you had that natural light that the homeowners like,
Right.
but it just didn't fit the front of the house at all.
No, it didn't. It really didn't.
Also, you really warmed the front of the house up with all the shutters you've installed.
The shutters are great. Every window on the front, and they're all traditionally hung shutters. They're all operable, and just great addition to the
Now, really,
front of this
most
house.
people, when they're hanging shutters, really don't hang them the right way, do they?
No, they don't.
You know, you usually just nail them right to the wall.
They get nailed to the wall, and the biggest problem with shutters is they're usually put on upside down. People look at them, they automatically think those slats should be pointed down. But of course, on an operable shutter, the slat should face up, so when that shutter is closed, the slat is down and protecting the house from weather.
And I like the little mechanisms you have on them to really keep them in the open position.
That's right, those are traditional galvanized New England stays.
They look great, look great. Now, what about the granite here? I can see using the, the bricks that were used on the other, or maybe even wood, but where did the granite come from?
Well, we started out, the first plan we got was for a wood deck here. And we looked at it, and the whole directive from the owner was to make this house look old, make it look original. And we looked at it and said, just the wood porch didn't do it. So we suggested these 7-inch thick solid granite slabs.
Well, I mean, they're in great shape, but it does look old and a little bit of authenticity
yeah,
here.
the rock face on this really helps with that, gives it that older look.
Now, of course, architecturally here, you've brought a lot of the details from the original house down into the roof covering here, just scaled them down a bit.
Right. The first thing, of course, is the wood roof. Matches the wood roof on the rest of the house. We've got this dentil molding that carries through from the rest of the home, the nice tapered columns, and then, of course, this beadboard ceiling here.
Now, of course, I understand you carried that over from the other porch area.
That's right, Danny, we did.
Well, what do you think about the double door situation? The home we're looking at down in Florida actually had 2 front entryways. That was a little confusing, but here it's a little bit of a different story.
Right, well, this is the formal entry. This is for looks. This is the aesthetic entry.
Right.
Everybody goes in the side door.
Okay, so that's really where all the neighbors and friends and that sort of thing, and this is just more for the formal. What about the walkway here?
We took a walkout that went over there, because nobody would come down it. If they were over there, they're going to go in that door anyways. And so what we thought we'd do is we'd build this, and then our clients would decide how they wanted to handle the new walk out to the driveway at a later date.
Well, that's probably a good way, because many times when people are trying to make decisions on different things like this, sometimes you just can't make all the decisions. It's better just to wait until you're at this stage.
We don't believe in rushing people into anything.
Good. Well, Paul, you've done a great job here. This has really made a difference in the house.
Thanks, Danny.
It's time to check out this week's best new product with Danny and today's Homeowner Magazine Editor-in-Chief, Paul Spring. Brought to you by the Home Depot.
Now, it really looks like a lawnmower to me, though, Paul.
Well, it may look like one, Danny, but this is not going to cut your yard grass, but it will clean it up in a terrific way. What this is the Sears 4-in-1 yard vacuum, and it does all sorts of things typically other machines do. It's a vacuum, it's a shredder, it's a blower, and it's a chipper. Let me show you how it works. First of all, it starts with a good-sized motor. This is a 4.5 horsepower from Tecumseh. And what that develops is 1,200 cubic feet of vacuuming power on the front of this 22-inch deck. You can lower, adjust the wheel height up front here, so you can really get down and suck up things like wet leaves and pine cones that are pretty tough to pick up any other way.
Now, with that kind of vacuuming power, though, you're going to fill up this little bag instantly.
Well, you are if it didn't have a shredding device in it, and it does, and it reduces everything on an 8-to-1 ratio. So it takes a long time to fill up these 2 bushels here.
Okay, now how about attaching the blower attachment?
The blower attachment's very easy. In fact, it's the same way you empty the bag. You just come in here and you pull this slide lock back and pull this up like there, and then you just put the blower attachment off. It comes on the side, and that's great for driveways and patios and walkways, that kind of thing where you have debris that you want to blow in.
That's great. That's real good. And I guess this is the chipper.
It is. The chipper, in fact, is pretty heavy duty. It'll take a branch up to 1.5 inches thick, Danny, which is substantial. Just turns it into sawdust, essentially, and it saves you from picking up all that wind debris.
Well, it sounds like it would work great, but why don't we head over to my house and give you an opportunity to try it out?
Oh, thank you, but maybe not, Tom Sawyer. I think I have a magazine to put out.
Now, the owners of this home have done a number of things over the last few years to really improve the appearance of the front of the home. One thing they did, which I really think added a lot, is to put on some shutters on all of the windows here in the front. Also, they've tiled the front ledge here on the front porch that really improved the entrance, and they've continued to add landscaping to kind of warm up the entryway to the home. But to really get the warmth they want when they have guests coming up to the front door, they're changing the front entry door. Now, they were lucky to find a company that they were able to choose the door, and they're handling the installation. You can see they're in the process of removing the existing unit. Now the old unit was okay, but it really was not very energy efficient, and it really didn't give that warm feeling the homeowners wanted. So they chose a door with plenty of glass and a nice elegant feeling to it, and it's a solid mahogany door. So the process starts with the removal. The workmen carefully remove all of the trim around the existing door and start removing the side lights. They then remove the old frame and sweep and clean up. Now at this time, they double check the measurements to make sure the new unit will fit. Also, they trim any siding that might be hanging into the opening. Then the new frame and side lights are placed into the opening. Now it's a tight fit, which is really what you want in a door unit. Of course, leveling and plumbing the frame is very important before nailing it in place. Now it is nailed not only on each side, but also on the top of the frame. Now after that, trim work begins. Not only are the door, frame, and side lights made from mahogany, so are the exterior trim pieces. Now since the owner is staining this unit, it's important the nailing of the trim is done very carefully. Now after installing the outside trim, the door itself is put in place. Of course, with any door, a little adjustment is needed here and there to ensure a good fit. Now after that, vertical trim pieces are installed between the door and the side lights. Now the next step is to trim out the interior. Now on this unit, the old trim is being used so that it matches the existing trim in the entry foyer. Now the remaining lock hardware is installed. One of the last steps is to seal the crack under the outside edge of the threshold with silicone caulking. Well, the door installers did a great job, and to tell you the truth, it only took them about 2.5 hours to remove the old door unit and to install the new one. Now, if you're thinking of installing a new door on your house, the first thing you need to do is to make the choice on the door that's right for the architectural styling of your home. A good tip, step back and take a picture of the front of your home and take that with you to the door showroom. Now, if you're dealing with a showroom like we're dealing with here, they have a wide variety of door units so that you can really make sure that you're picking the right one for your house. Now stay with us. After this Around the Yard segment, we'll go back to Florida and take a look at the completed entryway we started the show with.
Now let's go outside for Around the Yard with Danny and lawn and garden expert Barbara Katz. Brought to you by Scott's Lawn Products, for a great lawn, guaranteed.
Even if you mow your grass every weekend, you can really improve your lawn if you do it the right way.
Obviously, you want to try and mow it regularly, and if you can just remember not to mow it more than 1/3 of the height. The reason for that is if you do, the grass is going to put all its energy into growing taller rather than working on its root system.
Also, make sure that the blade on your lawnmower is good and sharp, because if it's a dull blade, it'll tear at the grass blades and leave it open to diseases.
And the other thing is, you know, you can see a lawn that's been mowed with a bad blade because it's got this really brown cast over it instead of a real bright, vibrant green.
Also, if you're like me and like to get up early in the morning to mow your lawn, you need to wait until the grass is good and dry, because it cuts easier and it's better for the lawn.
And sometimes you've got some real uneven areas, and if you keep mowing those, you're going to scalp the sides. So just get some topsoil and just layer it in real slowly, one mow at a time, and you'll get it all even.
Now, Barbara, what about the clippings? I see some people that'll use baggers, others that'll allow the clippings to return back to the grass. What's the right way?
Well, if you do mow regularly, then your clippings are going to be real small. And if on top of that you could have a mulching mower or a mulching blade, then I think it's great. Return those things to the ground because they got a lot of good things in them. But if you don't have that and you've let it grow too long, you really want to bag the clippings.
Now, if you remember what this house looked like at the start of the show, you'll remember it was a little confusing in that it had 2 different front entry doors. Well, now that this door has been eliminated and replaced with 2 windows, the front porch is complete, front steps, new entryway, really has made a big difference on the front of this house. Also, I thought the contractor did a great job in tying together the color of the shingles with the color of the lattice. And this lattice is very maintenance free because it's a solid plastic lattice with the color integrated into the plastic. So you don't have to worry about replacing it for years and years. Now, I hope you enjoyed this week's show, and hopefully we gave you some ideas to improve the curb appeal of your home. I'm Danny Lipford, and we'll see you next week here on Today's Homeowner.